It's Saturday night, and I'm still in Cherbourg. There's a hurricane crossing the Atlantic at the moment, which I want to avoid. It was due to come across and then sit on the Azores, and that would allow me to knock north of it. But as of this morning, the weather forecast says that's not possible. I'll cut in a picture of that just here. And basically I'm going to run into 45 to 60 knots. So not going to play that game. So waiting here. I want to be just exiting the English Channel on Monday afternoon. And then I'll be in a good position to come in behind the things where they've cleared out and get some favorable winds. So, but I realized there's something I wanted to do. The boat's been called Hellcat since we've had her, which is doffing our hat to Dodge, who we have a boat called Charger, a boat called Challenger, and a boat called Hellcat, which, if you're not from North America, are all names of Dodge vehicles. And I'm not a huge Dodge fan, but I love their paint schemes, I love their colors, I love their style. I do like the Dodge Charger very much. That's why we have a wrapped Dodge Charger, which I totally love. But the rest of them I'm not too bothered about. But Hellcat's a cool name for boats to go so fast. But I realized it didn't really mean anything to me, and it maybe even has a bit of a kind of truck fest kind of feel to it. I'm not sure. It's just not 100% me. So there's a name that I've been kicking around that I wanted on a boat for a long time, and that's Falcon. And obviously, as a Star Wars fan, the Millennium Falcon that did the Kessel Run in 12 parsecs is something that I'm aware of. Another very fast bucket of bolts, but also Captain Scott of the Antarctic. His middle name was Falcon, and he is the epitome of tenacity in pursuit. If you don't know much about Captain Scott, Robert Scott, then have a look and read it from the right source, which is Ranulph Fiennes. His book about Scott is incredible because it's a polar explorer talking about a polar explorer. And there's like 50 books that have been written about Scott of the Antarctic, and many of them get it completely wrong. A lot of them, people see him as being a bungler who didn't know what he was doing. The fact of the matter was, he was not there to go to the pole. He was there for scientific research, and then suddenly he was asked to, can you do this thing? And he stepped up in the best possible fashion with no skills, not the right people, not the right equipment, and obviously, yeah, he didn't get to the pole before Amundsen, but he got really close. He almost got back to camp. It's a fantastic story if you are looking to be inspired to greater feats of tenacity, which is exactly where we're going. So Falcon is the name I've gone with, and you may or may not be able to see it. I've cleaned up the back of the boat as well, which it really needed. Got all of the weed off the bottom there, but just there on the far side now, instead of saying Spirit of Yuko, which was a fantastic name that Kojiro had put on there, he was sailing in the spirit of Yuko Tada, who was his mentor. But that was one phase of this boat's existence, and now we move into another, and we move into one that the things that are important to me need to be expressed. So yeah, Millennium Falcon, Captain Scott. I think this bucket of bolts, now 12 parsecs, we've got to be 120 days around the world west about. Basically, the record at the moment, yeah, if we can hit 120 days, then we're doing it. So that's our 12 parsecs, 120 days around the world. 12 parsecs around the world in the Falcon. So, man, she's looking pretty kick-ass though, right? She's still got her old livery on, but it's not a bad look. But you can see how still it is here as well. The other reason for not going right now, I've got to watch these lights. The reason for not going now as well is that there is exactly zero wind. It's really nice because we took that time last night and jet washed her off and got everything working. She's in great condition now, as good as she's ever been. Every electrical system is working. Headsail's completely 100%, spinnaker halyards relashed on, mainsail is obviously 85% there, just needs some things connecting. Standing ring all checked through, the lashings have been doubled up. Running backstays all gone through. I do need to replace the lashings at the back here. I'm sure they're fine, but maybe I'll just put some extra safeties on them. And then, yeah, really enjoyed being able to clean the back of the boat off. The rudders still look awful, but you know, the whole underside of the boat, when we finally get the boat out of the water in Nova Scotia, you're going to see the fact that it's smooth, but it ain't very pretty underneath there. But awesome. So Falcon. So now we're going to have a short naming ceremony, which is where I will, having worked and lived in Hong Kong and in China, and having driven a Chinese race boat around the world, I know that the most important thing now is we need to open the boat's eyes, which you should paint a red dot on the front, but I don't have any red paint, so I've got some red vinyl, and we're going to stick the red vinyl on open her eyes that way, and then crack open a beer, one for her, one for me, and Bob's your Badger got a new name. People say, oh, you shouldn't change the names of boats. Utter tosh, and we shall talk about this, I'm sure, another occasion. I have no superstitions at all when it comes to being at sea. The superstitions are: make sure you got a good toolbox full of tools, make sure you know how to use them, make sure you've got all the skills required to be a offshore sailor, make sure that you look at the weather, make sure you look after your crewmates. There's the old superstition of having a good medical kit. There's a superstition of checking your boat every hour. The superstition of helping other seafarers, like not mentioning land animals, or leaving on a Friday, or bananas, or women on board, or changing the name of the boat, or like, there is a reason for every single one of those things, and maybe we'll get into them later on. There's a reason that's come down through history. No whistling on a boat. Where does that come from? It comes from the fact that there was a mutiny organized in the British Navy using whistling. So under the Articles of War, it is illegal for anybody to whistle on a naval ship. Okay, so whistling is then not bad luck, it's just a mutiny was organized using it. So you know, I guess if mobile phones had been used to organize a mutiny, that wouldn't then make mobile phones unlucky. Bananas on a boat, yeah, well, cargoes full of bananas used to have loads of spiders in, and then so having bananas on the boat was bad because of the spiders, not because of the bananas. So changing the name of a boat, commercial boats have had their names changed many times. I think the thing that makes it good or bad, or up or down, or left or right, is don't call it something like East Coast Hooker and have a picture of a woman in tights, and not tights, in stockings, you know, on a fish hook, or call it Frayed Knot and KNOT, or what's some of the other ones? One for the boys, BOUYS. Those kind of nautical names make me absolutely cringe. So you have to have something that's cool, that means something to you, because whether you believe it or not, I think boats, cars, complicated systems such as this take on a little life of their own and a little personality of their own, and you want to make sure that you know, don't give your kid a name like Lunar Module, because when the kid grows up and he'll be too happy with you. Don't give your boat a name like Write-Off, WRITEOFF, Write-Off, because the boat's not going to be happy about it. So Falcon, I think we can be pretty happy with. So come on the Falcon, and I'm going to go and open her eyes, and that's that. Keep your eyes open, keep us safe. One for you, Falcon, one for me. Alright, so we're all done. We're all done as much as we can be. I've knocked off a huge amount of the remaining jobs, but always there's going to be some things that are left over. I think the greatest mistake to make with boating is to think that you're ever going to set off and everything's perfect. It just doesn't happen. You know, you could have a perfect boat that's ready to go to sea, and you clip the dock on the way out, or the thing that you think is going to be the problem turns out to be no kind of an issue, and some tiny thing you haven't even considered is the one that gets you. So I'm aware that you know, as you go to leave the dock, you have your Papa flag up, which is the outward bound flag, something I'm more than aware of in my years working for them. You're leaving the relative safety of the dock and you're heading off into unknown things, and that's always part of boating. This boat, 10 days ago, I arrived on the Bar Fleur, which has come in just a little while ago. And this boat had been in mothballs basically for 18 months. It was driven across the channel in 10 hours 18 months ago, and before that it was in mothballs for 12 years. So I have scrubbed, I have cleaned. It just gets down to the point of like where it's time to go, and the tide is high and just starting to go back down now. You see where it was wet, so the tide's going to be flushing out the channel, which is what I wanted. The thing really which has been the biggest concern is the weather. There's that huge hurricane system crossing the Atlantic. Basically, I'm going to go very slowly down the channel now, and I could stay here for another day, but I've got to go. Cruise and boats rot in port. I got to go. I'll tootle around in the channel and just go slowly. The winds, basically I got to wait for the wind to come from the west, and then I know that this thing is ahead of me. It's rotating anti-clockwise. I will have winds coming up from the southwest. I don't want to be on port tack on it because I'll be heading into across the front of the thing, and I'm not fast enough to get across the front of it in this configuration. So I got to wait until the winds are west, and then I can choose either north or, well, I can choose either northwest or southwest as my angles initially to get going on. So I'll probably go southwest away from everything. So we're good to go. Time to get off the dock. We renamed the boat last night, which I'm really happy about. I think Hellcat just didn't have the correct feeling for me. Much better as Falcon, and I think that's a wrap for Cherbourg. I've really enjoyed being here. It's a fantastic town. I love finding this dock, which is away from the marinas and that. Otherwise, I gotta say, like, from my point of view, I love chatting to people about the sailing, but there's got to be a point where I get on with the work as well, and you end up in a situation where you have to literally have sunglasses on and headphones and sit with your back to people, because otherwise everybody in the marina, of course, wants to come and chat and find out all about it, and I love to chat to people. I get nothing done. So I've also got myself into gear here where I've been working at night. Like last night I started work at 9. I had an hour's sleep this morning between 6 and 7. I'll go on now, get out into the channel, get clear through the, well, actually I won't even get into the shipping lanes. I'll be in the inshore shipping lane, and I'll probably either heave to or just stop and drift on the tide, take an hour there. This boat's got the ability to, I've got AIS, which tells me if boats are coming towards me. I've got the radar scanner, which will be going crazy in the channel. I've got every piece of equipment you can possibly imagine. 2 life rafts, 2 EPIRBs, survival suit, you name it, I got it. So we're good, and a boat that can be divided into 7 watertight compartments, like rock and roll. But we'll be safe as always. This is not the first time I've done this, and I love that. Like I gotta say, like this is like leaving the turkey till last. You know, eat all this Brussels sprouts, eat all of the bits you don't like, and then leave the best bit till last. This is Christmas Day, not wanting to unwrap your first present, because then it's begun and then it's nearly, you know, it's getting towards over. I'm really excited. I'm really excited. Actually, that wind has come around beautifully now. The boat's just pushing away from the dock here a little bit. That tells me it's time to go. So let's get it on. Let's get out of here. Well, that's the mooring lines, last the mooring lines coming off. My goodness, the mooring lines could not have been more surprised. Could not have been more surprised. I think they thought they were in for life. We got a sail. Sheets are complaining in blocks. Sailing is happening. It's my new top speed for this boat, 5.2, as fast as I've ever been. Came all the way across the channel doing 3 knots. Just gonna take it off autopilot for a minute. Don't want any weirdness in here. Cool. The Falcon flies. Excellent.